Hello, I'm Jonathan Green. I'm the Director of Fitness to Practice at the General Dental Council.
And I'm Matthew Hill. I'm Director of Strategy at the General Dental Council.
Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. During the course of the video, we'll be explaining some of the current problems with dental regulation, the work we've done so far to fix them, some of the key themes of our regulatory reform work, and how you can get involved. And that's what shifting the balance, a better, fairer system of regulation is all about. So Matthew, what is the problem?
Well look, we've made huge improvements in the way we run our processes over the last year or 2 years or so. But our processes are pretty old-fashioned, they're pretty clunky, they're based on legislation from 1984, and even that was based on Victorian legislation. Now a lot has happened in the last 100 years in healthcare. There's a completely different relationship between healthcare professionals and patients, huge changes in technology. We've started to build services around patients. That's all acted to create a different set of expectations around healthcare. And the systems that we're operating just really haven't kept pace with that change in expectations. So we're not meeting expectations, our processes can sometimes be very stressful and oppressive for the profession, and actually they're pretty expensive.
Our traditional FTP-based model is unsustainable in terms of cost, and it doesn't enjoy the support of those who regulate. That's necessary if the system's going to be effective. The profession talks about a climate of fear, and what we really want is for people to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not because they're afraid of doing the wrong thing. The other problem with the system is that the patient protection benefits are often unclear. We also spend a huge amount of time on enforcement and too little on prevention, and we don't do enough to identify and spread learning from the data we have and that our partners also hold. We also don't make the most of the partnerships we have with others, not just regulators, but the profession itself. We also spend too much time and money on enforcement and too little on prevention. We don't do enough to identify and spread learning from the data we and our partners hold.
So all this means we're going to have to change the system to make it better, fairer, more proportionate and more agile. And because we can't bank on legislative change anytime soon, we're going to have to do this by building collaboration and partnerships with the many bodies across the system that can influence professional behaviour. In short, it's going to require the GDC to stand up and be a real leader and provide the space for the profession itself to lead. So we've spent a whole lot of time just simply talking to and listening to people from across dentistry, profession, patients, partners, and of course our own staff and employees, to build our understanding of where and how change is needed. So this diagram is meant to show the complexity of the system of dental regulation and the many influences over professional behaviour that exist. This big blue arrow across the middle represents distance from the GDC, and it shows that the GDC is just the final link in what is quite a long chain. If you look at the left-hand side of the arrow, we've got this box called upstream, and this is really about all the things that we can do to support the profession and help the profession better understand the obligations it's under and the standards we expect it to meet. So we talk about things like embedding the standards, we talk about good practice, we talk about education, continuing professional development, and just actually our communications and engagement with the profession, how we make common cause to deliver really good quality services for patients. So this next box here is about first tier resolution, and this is really about getting things dealt with in the right place at the right time for the right cost and with the least amount of intrusion. And very often that will mean the practice itself. Sometimes it will mean local professional networks and peer support, but the idea is that we've got to join up to find ways to get things dealt with by the right tools and the right people. Moving on, we've got this box here, delivery with partners, and what this means is we've got to get much more out of our partnerships with other regulatory bodies, sharing information, agreeing a common view of what good looks like and holding people to account for that. And then finally, at the end, this is the business end of the arrow. This is the GDC. This is where our very serious powers relating to fitness to practice come in. And this is, of course, where we hold all the levers. Much of what I've talked about so far has been about areas where the GDC either shares levers or where the levers are pulled by others. When we get to the GDC, of course, it's within our gift to change. And that's where we're talking about being really much clearer about the serious nature of fitness to practice. Now, looking elsewhere in this diagram, the red arrows across the bottom are some examples of things that, all else being equal, will tend to increase the pressure on complaints. And again, all things being equal, the greater the volume of complaints, the more cases end up at the GDC, and that means more cost, frankly. The arrows across the top are examples of things that move in the opposite direction. So it's better complaint handling in the practice, it's better relationships with partners, improved education, CPD. And if we get those right, that should exert pressure in the opposite direction and reduce cases flowing into the GDC. And then we have an arrow across the top going from right to left, which is meant to signify that we need to make sure our system of regulation is a learning system, that we're doing as much as we can to extract data and information from what we know is happening and feeding that back to the profession so it is better equipped to take a lead itself in preventing harm. And of course, this is what Shifting the Balance is really all about, and we'll be setting out our ideas in the 4 broad areas of moving upstream, first-tier resolution, working better with partners, and refocusing fitness to practice. So one of the big ideas is that the GDC needs to do more to prevent harm instead of relying on costly enforcement. So responding to harm is of course important, but almost by definition it's too late to ensure that patients are protected and that the public can have confidence in dentistry. So a big part of that will be changing our relationship with the profession. So we're looking for ways to embed our standards better and support the profession in delivering them. And of course we want to share learning from our fitness to practice processes with all dentists and DCPs.
It's best for everyone if complaints are resolved in the most appropriate place, which is often in the local practice. We want to work with the profession and our partners to ensure that feedback is dealt with in the practice, to ensure that customer care issues are resolved within the practice, and that complaints are resolved as close to the practice as possible. Improving how we signpost patients will help, and we also want to explore ways to provide an independent complaints resolution service where complaints cannot be resolved within the practice.
So working with partners, well, we want to work better with partners, both to prevent issues arising in the first place and handling them effectively when they do.
And a good example of this is the NHS Concerns work that we've done, which we launched in 2016 after a successful pilot. This initiative sees the GDC taking complaints that it's aware of and passing them back to the local NHS body, which is better placed to deal with the complaint. And this way of working gives us the model for ensuring that complaints are handled by the most appropriate body. And the GDC is looking at ways that this can be rolled out more widely. This means that the patient is not left high and dry and is helped by the body that is best placed to handle their complaint. What we've been talking about so far is really what happens before the issue arrives at the GDC. Making that better will involve building partnerships across the system because the GDC doesn't hold all the levers. But there is one part of the system where the law puts the GDC in control, and that's how we use our fitness to practice powers. FTP is important because it gives us access to tools to manage serious risk. But we need to make sure that we're only using those tools where they're the best ones for the job. Very often it will mean letting others, for example other regulators, the profession itself, use less intrusive mechanisms to deal with less serious risks. And to help make that work, we need to restate to ourselves and to others, the profession, patients and the public at large, that impaired fitness to practice means serious shortcomings in competence or conduct that puts individual patients at risk or seriously undermines public confidence in dentistry. Our job is to protect patients and to protect public confidence in dental services from serious risk. Anything short of that, and we need to let others do their job.
And it's really important to recognise that the GDC can't do this alone. Firstly, we'd like your thoughts and ideas, and you can share these with us by responding to the consultation on our website. But we also need to work together with you to implement the plans we've set out here. We'll continue involving you throughout the consultation and beyond, but in the meantime, if you've got any questions, you can email shiftingthebalance@gdc-uk.org.
Thank you for watching the video.
Thanks.